Our group grants permission for our instructor, Mr. Roldan Ardenez, to use this as educational material. We will be discussing our topic, learning to be a better student. But before that, let us first know the learning objectives for this topic. Learning Objectives 4.2. Understand the theoretical underpinnings for how to manage and care for different aspects of the self. Discuss the influence of metacognition and self-regulation in learning. Learning Objective 4.3. Understand the theoretical underpinnings for how to manage and care for different aspects of the self. Choose and apply strategies to improve learning. So, what is learning? Simply put, learning is the process of acquiring new knowledge, skills, and behaviors that permanently change the way we think and act. So, it is not just memorization, it's a genuine change that happens inside your brain every time you truly understand something new. When we encounter new information, our brain processes it by connecting it to what we already know. This is why prior knowledge matters. The more foundation you have, the easier it is to understand and retain new concepts. Now, not all learning is the same. Surface learning is shallow. You memorize it for the test and forget it after. On the other hand, deep learning is a meaningful. You understand, connect, and apply the concept beyond the classroom. Finally, all learning passes through the three fundamental stages. First, encoding. It is where the brain takes in information. Second, storage, where it is held in memory. And third, retrieval, where we access it and when needed. Importantly, every time we retrieve information, we actually strengthen our memory of it. Understanding how learning works is the first step to becoming a better, more effective student.
So there are four main types of learning, each activating different parts of the brain. So the first is declarative learning, involves memorizing facts and information, relying heavily on the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex. This is what mostly used in school when we memorize dates, definition, and names. So the second is procedural learning, is about developing skills through repeated practice like typing or diving. It is handled by the cerebellum and basal ganglia, which is why muscle memory feels so automatic over time. And the third is conceptual learning, goes deeper by focusing on understanding the why behind things, engaging the prefrontal cortex and association areas of the brain to build critical thinking and reasoning skills. So the part is experiential learning, often the most powerful of all, happens through direct experience and emotion. It activates the amygdala alongside the hippocampus, making memories more vivid and along listing such as what we gain from internship to community outreach or playing team sports. Beyond the types of learning themselves, three key factors determine how well information is retained. Repetition strengthens neural pathways and makes forgetting harder. Emotion signals the brain to prioritize saving a memory and contextualize information to specific environment, making it easier to recall later. Ultimately, the brain is not a single learning machine but a network of specialized regions, and the most effective learners are those who combine all four types of learning while taking advantage of repetition, emotion, and context to make knowledge truly stick.
Neuroplasticity, how learning physical changes the brain. So the brain ability to change, adapt, and recognize itself. Unlike the old belief that brain is fixed after childhood, science shows that the brain can continue to develop throughout life. This change happens when neurons or brain cells form new connection. Every time you learn something new, practice a skill, or experience something different, your brain rewires itself. The more you repeat an activity, the stronger those connections become.
Behavioral change through learning, habits, motivation, and mindset. So learning doesn't just fill your mind with information, it actually reshapes how you behave, respond, and grow over time. The real impact of learning shows up in your daily habits, your motivation, and the mindset you develop about your abilities. So, turning learning into automatic behavior. When you repeatedly practice a skill or routine, your brain strengthens neutral pathways, a concept studied in neuroscience. Over time, actions like reviewing notes, managing time, or solving problems becomes habits, things you do almost automatically. Good studied habits like spaced repetition or consistent schedules reduce mental effort and make learning more efficient. On the other hand, poor habits like procrastination can also become automatic if repeatedly often. So in psychology, motivation is divided into intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. So intrinsic motivation is doing something because it's interesting or satisfying. Example, learning because you enjoy understanding new ideas. While extrinsic motivation is doing something for rewards or to avoid punishment. Example, grades, praise, or deadlines. Mindset how you see your abilities to improve. The idea of fixed versus growth mindset comes from Carol Dweck. Fixed mindset is believing intelligence or ability is static. For example, I'm just not good at math. While growth mindset is believing abilities can improve with effort and learning. Your brain's abilities to change behavior depends heavily on physical and emotional condition. First is sleep, critical for memories consolidation. During sleep, the brain processes and strengthens what you learned during the day. Lack of sleep reduces focus and retention. Second is exercise. Exercise improves blood flow to the brain and support neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to adapt and rewire. Even light physical activity can boost concentration and mood. The third one is emotional state. Stress, anxiety, or low mood can block learning by affecting attention and memory. Positive emotions and calm state help the brain absorb and apply new information more effectively.
Metacognition. Metacognition is the process of thinking about thinking, one that is used to make decisions that maximize learning outcomes and help students meet their goals. Metacognition is thinking not just about what of learning but the how. Ultimately, metacognition is all about creating the best possible opportunity to learn what you are trying to learn. So when you're learning something, you stop to consider what you're trying to learn. What do you know and you're trying to learn it, and how effective your strategies are, and what you can do differently to improve your understanding. Most people don't move beyond cognitive strategies when learning. Cognitive strategies are things tests ask you to do: recall, analyze, interpret, and apply information. Metacognition helps us to see which cognitive strategies need to occur, so we're best prepared for a test, while also showing us we need to do differently in order to be successful. When we start looking at what we need to do, our learning goal, and how we are going to do our plan for planning, we are discussing between metacognitive knowledge and metacognitive regulations. There are three basic strategies of metacognition process plan, which is the monitor and evaluate. First, your plan approach to learning a topic, especially how you will digest the information. Then monitor your comprehension of topic as you study, with actions such as practice test. Finally, evaluate the results of your learning when you're finished, and modify your approach. This may sound like extra steps, but they are actually essential parts. These steps help learners to see that they've used their time to recall, analyze, interpret, and apply information.
Most of us study hard, but we aren't studying smart. Let's take a look at the science of what actually works. Rereading and highlighting feel good because they're easy, but they create an illusion or competence without real retention. What about cramming? It helps you pass tomorrow, but vanishes by next week, these habits are a trap. The most effective strategy is retrieval practice. Instead of passively putting information in by rereading, you practice pulling it out of your brain. So every time you recall an answer through flashcards or practice, you actively strengthen the memory's neural pathways. Pair active recall with spaced repetition. If you cram all at once, you quickly fall victim to the forgetment. But by spacing out your review sessions, you actively interrupt. Reviewing material just as you're about to forget, it forces your brain to strengthen those neural pathways for a long term. Don't just study one topic for hours, that's called block practice. Instead, use interleaving, mix different subjects or problem types together. It forces your brain to distinguish between concepts, which structurally improves your problem solving skills. To achieve true mastery, combine elaborative interrogation with the Feynman technique. First, ask yourself, why is this true, to build deep connections. Next, explain the concept in simple terms as if teaching a child. If you stumble, you've just exposed a hidden knowledge gap. Ready to improve? Implement this three-step action plan. First, stop passive highlighting. Second, start using active recall with practice quizzes. Third, space your study sessions out. Replace just one passive session with active retrieval and watch your retention soar. So study smarter, not harder.
Self-regulated learning and what it is and why it matters. Definition. Self-regulated learning or SRL refers to the process of which learners actively take control of their own learning by setting goals, monitoring their progress, and reflecting on their performance. It is not just about being smart or having a good study habits. It is about being an active agent in one's own learning journey. Theoretical framework. Zimmerman's model. Barry Zimmerman's model is one of the most widely recognized frameworks of understanding SRL. It describes learning as a cyclical process consisting of three phases. 1. Forethought phase. Before engaging in learning, the learner prepares by goal setting, defining specific, clear, and achievable objectives, strategic planning, deciding on the methods, resources, and timeline to reach those goals, and self-motivated beliefs, building confidence and interest in the task. Second, performance phase. During the learning process, the learner actively manages their behavior, like self-monitoring, keeping track of the progress, attention, and understanding. Strategy use. Applying effective learning techniques. Example, summarizing, note-taking, and time management. And self-control. Maintaining focus and avoiding distractions. Third, self-reflection phase. After completing the task, the learner evaluates and adjusts. Self-evaluation. Comparing actual results against goals and standards. Attribution. Analyzing what caused success or failure. Example, effort, strategy, or luck. Adaptation. Using insights to improve future performance, changing strategies, and new goals.
Practical tools for self-regulated learning, planning, monitoring, and reflecting. First is planning. As a student, we need clear goals. We can use the SMART method, which means specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. For example, instead of saying I will study, we can say I will review 2 lessons in 1 hour. We can also use a study planner to organize our tasks, set deadlines, and manage our time properly. Second is monitoring. This happens while we are studying. We should check if we really understand the lesson by asking ourselves questions like, can I explain this in my own words? If not, we need to adjust our strategy like reading, taking notes, or watching videos. A learning journal is useful to track what we understand and what we need to improve. Lastly is reflecting. After quizzes or exam, we should evaluate our performance. Ask yourself, what did I do well? And what can I improve? Using a self-assessment rubric helps us see our strengths and weaknesses clearly. In conclusion, by planning, monitoring, and reflecting, we can become more responsible and effective learners.